The following video contains content some viewers might find disturbing. The views and opinions expressed here are not facts and are nothing more than entertainment. The views and opinions are not facts and do not represent the views and opinions of Xirtus or our channel, and do not necessarily represent or reflect the views of the guests, YouTube, Google, mainstream media, society, or civilization at large, or anybody. Viewer discretion is advised.
What up? Welcome to Wednesday Ultra. How's it going?
What up?
Hey.
What's up,
guys?
Happy
Dude.
Wednesday, Ultra.
Happy Wednesday. Happy Wednesday Ultra. Yeah, it feels nice. It feels nice to be with you all. I love the tree, Seth. This is amazing.
Thank you, brother. I got my signature edition Christmas is Essential hoodie by Abe Angst, also available at vbdc.store.
Oh, it's cool.
Nice.
When did you get your tree set up?
I've got one downstairs and one upstairs. This is my first year ever getting two trees because I needed
Nice.
one for the Talkie Time studio, and I set this one up yesterday. The one downstairs, I bought it with the stand, and it was so crooked, and it's not the kind of stand where you can screw it in different directions. So I actually went to Home Depot and got a brick, and now I leveled it out with a brick under one of the feet. So I'm going to do that one tomorrow.
Make it work, Griswold. Nice.
What's the rule with the Christmas tree? Do you know what I'm talking about? There's like a Catholic.
When you put it up and when you take it down.
Yeah. There's like a thing. There's like a specific time.
12 days before and 12 days after, I think it is.
I think that's Jehovah's Witness. Right. That might be even more specific.
That's Jehovah's Witness.
Yeah. No, the Catholic.
I think it's a Catholic.
The Catholics have a Druid law. I mean, the Druids obviously were the OGs of this, so I want to figure out what the Druids say to do.
It's like Christmas tide.
Well, the Druids didn't cut down the tree. You know what I mean? Like they had a tree that grew year round. They come hang out with the tree. The tree's got the grandparents fertilizing it. There's a lot of weird stuff going on with the Druids, allegedly. But
they sell that now. They sell that where they grow your tree and you can order it. And
next year I'm doing that. If I had this house in time, but I moved in just at the beginning of the month. So next year I'm getting a living Christmas tree.
I'm all about it. I want to have a room for one, It's like instead of a piano room, just have a tree room. The ancient Romans
multiple living Christmas trees and just fill your whole living room with trees.
The ancient Romans
decorated pine. Yeah.
They decorated their homes with evergreen boughs during Saturnalia, a feast centering on the winter solstice. So we do have that, and it's interesting because Saturnalia is also when slaves rode the masters around the house. There's a lot of inversion that's going on for Saturnalia. But then you've got this flamenco oddity that it's not until the 1500s all of a sudden Germans start doing the Tannenbaum, and you've got this idea that it's the Christmas somewhere in between there. So ancient Rome completely ignoring the Druids, ignoring the influences of the the pagans that were interested in the tree worship and the Green Man. This is something that Giant had brought up. Green Man. What am I going to type in to find the right thing?
Big symbol. Yeah.
I mean, yeah. So, what is the Green Man again?
It's all related to nature. It's nature worship and how nature is dying, goes down into it falls during fall and it goes down into winter, and then it re-springs up. So, all of winter is considered kind of the same thing. It's a period of death, and then there's renewal that happens at spring, but then there's the sun's renewal that happens right on Christmas, right?
Dude, so the Green Man seems like a connected idea also to this. I mean, Santa Claus goes red because of Coca-Cola, right? Santa Claus
and the mushrooms, Coca-Cola and the shrooms.
Is that true? He was not always red. I know in different countries.
Well, he was not always red. No, Victorian England, throughout the 1800s, he was green, he was purple, he was blue.
What about in Germany? I feel like,
he's often blue. He's blue all across Slavic culture and into Germany. He's usually blue. I have actually my grandfather made a stocking for me where Santa Claus is wearing blue because
those are Hanukkah colors now, blue and white.
Very much so. Interestingly, right? It's very, you could imagine the interesting connection between the Ashkenazi and Northern Europe and the blue and the white from the Dead Moroz. They also call Santa Claus or his equivalent Dead Moroz, which is like father.
What I'm really interested in,
Frost.
We're creating as we go a cargo cult religion, basically. Yes. This is from Coca-Cola bottles. Now it changes the color. The whole story of Santa Claus keeps getting morphed to keep up with consumerism and stuff like that. But somehow I still love it. This is my favorite version of Santa Claus. I don't want him to go back to blue or to have
I love it. Yeah.
Black Peter come with him or any of that stuff. I like him just the way he is with Rudolph and Frosty. And it's kind of amazing. Like the origin is just like a patchwork.
Well,
but 1942, World War II.
Exactly. What do you associate with that kind of holiday cultural experience? There's a lot of good feelings and vibes around the situation for freedom and what the United States represented in the world at that time to the minds of human beings.
Dude, Sprite Boy, this is terrifying. What?
Holy cow.
Well, I mean, 1940.
Sprite Boy is not welcome at my Christmas.
Thanks.
No peeking around.
I didn't send you an invite, Sprite Boy.
My God. This is the Ronald McDonald of the 40s. They got rid of it.
That's what they had before Santa Claus? Wow.
No, I don't know. I think Santa Claus was before this, actually. It looked like. Let me go back to where it said.
What year did Santa Claus and Coca-Cola become?
It's anonymous. 1931. Santa Claus was depicted as a tall, gaunt man with spooky-looking elf, donned a bishop's robe and Norse huntsman animal skin. The red and white comes, as far as I know, for Coca-Cola anyway, and perhaps for Santa, from barbers, the medical barbers. The candy cane as well comes from the barber candy cane. What do you call that? The red and white spiral. This symbol you knew meant in the Middle Ages a bloodletting, haircut, health. Somebody who was doing old wivery medicine. And it's interesting, the red spiral symbol. It's become so
candy canes.
Yeah, exactly. But Father St. Nicholas was also a medical guy, so.
Something interesting is that people like to associate that his name is Santa Claus, and they go, "Oh, that's like that's Satan." If you rearrange the letters and stuff, right?
Thank you for reminding me.
But Santa actually, what it means is it means saint, but only for a female, because it's Santa Clara and it's San Jose. That's Saint Jose, right? Santa means a female saint. Right?
Okay, so I'm watching.
That's why he has like a pregnant belly, and this is why he has a bag that's full of all these presents. It's the things that are coming out of it, right?
Energy.
They're showing that it has that dual energy.
So I'm watching the Disney Channel. I'm watching Disney Plus, and I go on to the Santa Claus, and you guys all know Santa Claus. It's a great movie with Tom.
Yeah,
it's great. Tim Allen, sorry.
I also have SC initials. I think hopefully, when I was in kindergarten and they asked me what do I want to be when I grow up, I said Santa Claus.
Calvin.
They were like, "You can't be Santa Claus." And I was like,
what's your birthday? What's your birthday?
Why not? Who says?
April
2.
April 2nd.
The whole
April 2nd. Okay, Aries. Yeah.
Aries. Yeah.
They say that Jesus was born on April 1st. So I'm probably him. No, I'm just kidding. I don't feel that way.
Well, the thing is that the conception is in Aries. So to be a Capricorn, which they always put the December 25th. You're conceived in Aries, and that's has to do with March, where you get Mary, and this is Mars. Mars is why. This is the child.
I have the same birthday as Ian Crossland. Yeah, but that's really interesting, Giant. I never thought about it that way.
It's the child, and that's why there's a goat and a ram connection, right?
Yeah, you know what? I have the same birthday as Ian Crossland, and I interviewed him once. We got along great. He never responded to my messages after that. Even when I told him, "Hey, brother, we have the same birthday," he left me on scene. So, Andreas, could you yell at him for me next time you talk to him?
I know what's rough with Ian is Ian tries to contact and talk to everybody, and literally there's like 80,000 people that are trying to hit him up all the time.
No, I feel you.
We're gonna try to get him on the show soon. We just have to do it after at a different hour than the show or during the weekend.
Let's stay on the Santa Satan thing though, because there's a gold mine in there, and I know you wanted to bring up the new.
I got a little iceberg to unravel here. So you've seen my Santa Claus episode. I did this episode about Santa Claus, the show.
I met you. That's the first thing yours I ever saw.
And I recommend it to anybody, especially around Christmas time. I've got a couple Christmas specials. I should probably try to work on another one.
Yeah, repost that stuff. I'm going to watch the Santa Claus one. I haven't seen it yet.
Dude, my It's a Wonderful Life one's not bad. But here's the deal. So with the Santa Claus, you've got there's a lot going on with it. It's a lot more mischievous than you would think. And I'm not going to go through the whole thing. You should just watch the episode. But the bottom line is, if you've seen it and you know Bernard, let me go to the Santa Claus Bernard. When the elves... when Santa Claus dies and the new guy shows up, the elves have no remorse. They're not sad. They just move. They just start going. And so I have a kind of a conspiracy theory that Santa Claus in the 20th century was using kids in China to make toys and in coal and things like that. I don't know exactly how far this goes yet, but something was going on and the elves were getting kind of uppity and they didn't like this Santa and they kind of had him pushed off the roof. And when that happened, they brought in this new Santa. Yeah, that's right. This is the Disney movie from Santa Claus. And with that, they have the Santa Claus. Now, as the movies progress, they use a further and further deeper, smaller lens to reveal even finer and finer print about the Santa Claus clauses. And there's a Mrs. Claus. There's your candy cane, barbarism. There's a lot of stuff going on there. Also, the fact that elves
and it's a snake. Like it's a snake. You see it in the other pictures. If you go backwards, you see that it looks like a snake wrapping up a pole, right? So this is very. They're showing symbology of the demiurge kind of.
Again, this is the first one. This is the first movie about the Santa Claus series. So watch the thing that I put out about it. There's some stuff there, but when you go a little deeper, hold on, I lost my.
I'm gonna kick you in the nuts for an hour and a half with the Santa Claus. Get ready for some truth.
Yeah. I mean, but what ends up happening is in the newest series, without too many spoilers, Cal Penn, right? He is a father of a little girl who's lost the mother, his wife, and he's looking into the Illuminati. He's working in software for a distribution company, and he finds this Patterson footage of Santa Claus, and he sees Santa Claus in his house, and he gets asked to join this Squid Games thing to become the next Santa Claus because Santa Claus wants to retire.
This is the new Santa Claus.
Yeah, this is the first episode of this new series.
All right.
And so Kal Penn is going to try to become the new Santa Claus. And simultaneously, the family of Santa Claus, these kids who are living in their PJs up at the North Pole, they're like Palo Alto kids. They have no idea about reality. They're just eating full-size bowls of macaroni and cheese barefoot on the hills of Berkeley, thinking about like what it would be like to play Tractor Simulator, or they want to know what it's like to be in the real world. They want to know what it's like to pay taxes and to clean stuff up. And they're like, so the whole thing is just
be like to have a mortgage.
Exactly. Exactly. You get to pay to park. Yeah. These kinds of things. And so he's like, oh my God, I led my kids astray. So, but as the thing goes on, anyway, the kids are saying goodbye to Santa Claus. The elves are, and they put up this sign. And they're like, "Come on, T, you guys got to switch." And then they move them. So for like 30 seconds, it says, "We love you, Satan." And then he's like, and then they have to switch the letters to make it say Santa Claus. And this is just the first episode,
Right. And they do this on purpose. That was put in there.
Yeah, they did it on purpose, but also it's just a bad joke. Like, I don't think like the writers are like, oh, the producers say we have to like get in a hail to Satan in the first episode. I think
right.
Like, we need a joke.
Are we? I mean, but like,
right.
I don't know. I feel like that's the only logical explanation is that they're like, wouldn't it be awesome if we were able to be like, whoops, you know what I mean?
I totally disagree with you on that one. I think when you can explain something with lazy writers, don't look further than that. Like when they made the movie Moonfall and they're like, the moon is hollow. They're revealing everything. It's revelation of method. I was like, no, it's lazy writers who went on YouTube to steal your ideas, make a Hollywood script out of it.
There's some guys that say the moon is hollow. Let's use that.
I think that Satan joke is like the ultimate low hanging fruit. Like people have been making that word thinking. I call that. This is like, what KRS-One does, word thinking. People have been making that Santa Satan like, oh, don't you know, like fear means like forever eating. You know what I mean? Like people like do all kinds of word thinking where they take the letter of each letter of the word and tell you what the word really means. And it's like, that's not how etymology works. That's not how language has evolved. So I think that's just a low hanging fruit joke. I don't think that the show is literally attempting to convert children to Satanism.
So this is something to think about also, is that the saint that has Santa in it is Santa Lucia, right? It's a female, Lucius, right? It's actually a female name. And so that's the connection between Lucifer and this Santa character that they're trying to make. So there's a little bit of a deeper hole that you got to dig to find out about this.
Do you ever go to the IMDb of a writer and try to figure out like, okay, what writers worked on before this and see like what other projects they did?
Sure. Oh, yeah. I'm
always curious. I mean, some of these stuff, big. I'm very curious.
I'm curious. What do you think, dude? Because it sounds like you might have a reason to think that this could be something, like, hey, we'll put this in here.
I don't think that like anyone's first goal in life was to work on the Santa Claus miniseries, and they probably have other things.
If there's one thing. Yeah.
And I think that I've seen a lot of writers take something they were working on and change it to, like, oh, I'm supposed to make an episode about DuckTales. I have this script about a safe cracking operation. Let's put it into DuckTales. You know what I mean?
Oh, that's true.
Mm-hmm. And so you got this retired cop seeks revenge against an elderly man. He's convinced that the Nazis slaughtered his family during World War II. Beautiful blue eyes. I don't know. I've never seen this movie, but I'm really curious now because like the person who made the Santa Claus miniseries started with this movie about, which looks a lot more dark. So I don't know. I mean, I'm always in the behind the veil thing there. Who's to say? Who knows what's going on? I don't know.
Right. I think the easiest explanation is they're like, we have some exposition to get out. They're like, how do we frame it? They're like, oh, maybe it's like a welcome back Santa. And then they're like, now we need a joke for that scene. They're like, maybe they're holding up a sign that says Santa, but it's like Satan.
I hope so, because I really like.
I know how these writers work. Man, they're just lazy. Mountain Dew addicts.
So with Santa Claus, there's this older story where he has this thing with him. It's Black Pete or whatever, right? So it has this character that you know, a lot of the framing that they do with Santa Claus is
why is Black Pete? Has anyone heard of Black Pete?
Oh yeah.
I don't know who Black Pete is.
You never saw that Office episode?
so
Office Christmas.
yeah, that's just
you got to watch all the Office Christmas episodes, man. They're pure gold.
So the Santa Claus character is a Reaper character, right? If you look at Capricorn,
a Saturn type character.
Yeah. So what it's doing is telling you, it's like, look, don't be naughty, because what's going to happen is that they're keeping a list and they're checking it twice. Yes. And this thing
Dude,
has
we just shocked Xirtus. We just dug deeper than the Xirtus hole.
There's a bunch of, it's all blackface. There's a bunch of versions of it, right?
Every time someone brings up Justin Trudeau, now I'm going to bring up a short fight. So
there's a whole episode,
and it's Capricorn. Justin Trudeau is a Capricorn. He's showing this character right here. And this is what we got to watch out for with this reset and stuff. You're going to start seeing Capricorns like this show up, right? Fauci is a Capricorn. There's a ton of them, and what they're doing is they're playing this Black Pete character, and this is our karmic retribution. There's judgment that happens.
He's the lump of coal. That's where the lump of coal came
from. That's where the lump of coal. Yeah. Exactly. This is where
they're going to turn you into short pipe. Or
he brings the bad gifts. Like if you're if you're nice, you get a blessing, and if you're naughty, you got to watch the Office episode. It's called Dwight Christmas, where Dwight tries to bring them like the old Dutch, like Deutschland Christmas vibes. With I forget what Santa was called, but he has like a. I can't say what it's called, but when you have a bunch of sticks tied together, and he's like whipping people with it if they've been naughty.
Right. Yes. Yeah.
And they bring up the jester. This is something you brought up in your previous show, is that there's this clown character or this jester that comes in that is the one that plays the tricks on you and has to come in and mess with you and try to get you to learn your lesson about this world. Because if you act like a fool, you're going to get the fool's gift, right? And Santa Claus wants to give the poor children that are struggling, wants to give them a leg up. And so everything that happens during this season is things about giving people that are unfortunate the leg up, and the people that aren't doing any good, but they're taking all the resources, is going to give them a leg down. And so you'll see with Mao Zedong, he was a Capricorn also, is what he was doing. He was just taking the poor people from the field and he was switching them with the elites, and he was killing off all the elites, right? And masses for taking everything and not being fair. So it's all about fairness and balance that happens during this season. You'll see it over and over again in the real people that live in this world and in the stories that you'll see.
Man, the bell on his hat, because the jingle bells, but bells, and we know with the Liberty bells and the, like what's it called? The 1812 war bells, You just type in a picture.
We're not done with Christmas. I see how you're trying to.
No. Actually, I was about to go back to short pipe. I'm not done with this. I'm not even into. And don't be thinking like we're not going to be on some current issues in a second either. But the earliest
4 straight weeks of this, everyone in chat, nothing but Christmas. Get ready.
Oh my God, I got all my synthesizers running Christmas jingles, and it's amazing. It's like this is all as a child all I ever wanted, because you these Christmas lights that do the like ding 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 ding, and if you get like a little oscillator knob and solder it onto those things, that's like a military grade chip from 5 years before that thing came out. So you can do some pretty crazy organic modulated synthesizers.
You got to make a video of that, man.
I'm thinking about it. All right. But the earliest known illustration of the character Short Pipe comes from the 1850 book by Amsterdam school teacher Jan Schenkman, who in his depiction depicted Short Pipe as a black Moor from Spain. Okay, there you go. Because the Spanish, they hated him because they controlled the Dutch. They have a 70, 80-year war. They're no longer Spanish. But we're forgetting how much of Spain was actually black, because they were the Cordoba Caliphate, the Sassanid Empire. They were, you had a lot of Moors. So that is interesting. Those portraying the traditional version of Short Pipe usually put on blackface, colorful Renaissance attire, in addition to curling wigs and bright red lipstick. The character has been increasingly controversial since the early 2010s and decreasingly prevalent at municipality holiday celebrations of the years that have followed. As of 2021, a revised version of Dubby Sooty Pipe, oh man,
Pete.
Has become more
like Pieter. Pete,
yeah. And his name is Jan. See, that's a Janus reference, and this is showing
John.
This is where the curly hair and all that stuff came into the European culture, and there started being judgment around this time, where this is where you saw a lot of people killed.
You ever see a Janus? the Honest is such a cool East German car. Yeah. You never know whether it's coming or going, man. And like, it seems kind of weird because is there any pictures of people sitting in it? Because like you have to face the other directions from each other. You know what I mean? Like no matter how beautiful you are, it doesn't matter because you're like looking out the window the whole time, which is nice. But you're like, good to see you behind me.
That's fun when you're a kid and you're in the back of the station wagon pretending you're shooting like Star Wars blasters at the cars behind you and stuff.
Sweet though.
Oh yeah,
I do love the Honest.
Well, what do you guys think? Because it's like a game of telephone, right? Is like what I'm learning about Santa Claus.
In the back, yeah.
We're in the middle of this game of Santa Claus. Of telephone with Santa Claus, where like it started as whatever. Now we've got the Coca-Cola guy with elves at the North Pole, and it's going to keep changing after we're gone. And they show in Futurama, like what do they call them? Santa. It's like Santa X. Or something.
That massive Santa robot. Yeah,
They're celebrating Xmas, and Santa's like a robot that comes to kill you. So it just keeps changing. But like, what do you think about the nature of like how stories evolve culturally and like what does it mean? Is it a perversion of the original story, or is the original story no more pure, or is it like reaching some state of some final state where it's the way it's supposed to be, or is this just every generation has?
Sorry, I believe that what this is really is a story of this Vishnu character. This is a reincarnation of a character that comes back, but he comes back different every time. So Vishnu isn't the same character every time. In one of the stories, he comes back to tell Arjun, you have to fight. You have to go and fight with your cousin and stuff or it's either his brother or his cousin, and you got to do it to the death, right? So he's not always just this benevolent character that's being kind and saying just love and be peaceful and all that stuff. He does it. He has a different story and a different theme every time that it comes.
But he does come back to judge at the end of every.
It's all judgment. It's all judgment. So there's always a duality, and this is where it's basically encompassed in astrology is between Jupiter and Saturn, right? And it's in Saturn specifically because Saturn is the judge. But Jupiter's right on the outside of Saturn, right on the outskirts. And when these conjunctions happen, this is when these aeons change and they shift place. This is actually how you really track these aeons. It's not just sun. It's also conjunctions with Jupiter and Saturn. There you got your ebony and ivory. You have your black and your white, and they have to come into conjunction. They have to have a conversation with each other about what was the good deeds and what was the bad deeds of humanity. And then there's going to be a judgment depending on that. Who wins that out is, if you look in astrology, Saturn will sit either above Jupiter or below Jupiter or right behind Jupiter. And when it's behind Jupiter, then it's giving Jupiter the crown because it looks like a crown that's behind Jupiter because of the rings of Saturn. That all depends on exactly what kind of judgment humanity has, and it's trying to come to an equilibrium. It's trying to figure out how is it that the judgment that we do, severe or benefic, malefic or benefic, what is going to be the best outcome for humanity to get to where it needs to get to bring balance to this world. That's what it's all about. And that's why you have this Santa and this Black Pete character and stuff like that. Or just the fact that Santa is going to judge whether you're naughty or nice. And every year you have a new chance to prove yourself as someone that either needs malefic judgment or benefic judgment.
Is there a Santa character in Saturnalia, or is that just like about nature and like
Saturn itself is Santa.
Yeah, I mean, the idea of the presents bag, I think you said earlier, is pretty good. So
the masters would roll up with the satchel of gifts, and they would be giving gifts to the slaves. That would be the turnabout. Slaves would be treated as, the coolest people for a day, and they would be treated like the masters. So they would have.
I like the implications
that's the only thing that.
Yeah, totally. I like the implication of what Giant's saying about like the duality of Satan, because people always speak about like the character of Satan in such like an absolute and like black and white way that I'm like, I don't know. I haven't really studied it, but I don't, the duality of it, of like bringing judgment and temptation and stuff like that. Like, not to say, I'm not saying like worship Satan or anything like that, but I always just feel like it was a little bit over the top. They're like, there's this one evil bad guy. All you got to do is beat him, and then you win the game. And I was like, probably life's more complicated than that. Like, it's probably just an aspect of life, something that makes the wheel go around, like Satan, Saturn, Santa, all these things.
I mean, he has a sleigh or whatever. He's got a cart with his thing that's pulling him around and a scythe because he's also the master of time. And so you've got a bunch of characters that come out of that, like time, chrono, death. There's definitely like a bunch of legends that probably people are like, no, that's a different guy, because
death isn't an enemy either. There's a great Built to Spill album called "There Is No Enemy." I always thought about that phrase, "There is no enemy." Like, we're always like looking for enemies. We're like, that's the bad man, that's the source of all evil. Get rid of him, and everything's gonna be good.
And this is the thing, is that if you really look at it and be true to yourself, a character that comes in that's going to judge people in things that aren't being fair to the rest of the people here. Because what it ultimately wants, if this thing is the all, we are all its children, it doesn't want anybody capitalizing too much on any sort of situation. And when it sees that you're doing it and you're not giving back and you're not living by certain rules and laws of just being fair, then it has to judge you. And it's judging the ones that are doing wrong, to have their karma, is really what's going on. And the less that we believe in it, the less that we function with it, then it's going to be harsher and harsher to even us that are the ones struggling, because we don't believe in it anymore. And this is the story over and over about Santa Claus, is that you don't believe in him anymore.
So it's almost like there's true stories about like the fabric of reality, and we can't escape them. They can try to hide them, or we can try to ignore them, and then it keeps coming back. We might change it into like the Coca-Cola commercial, Santa Claus, and like Christmas specials and all that. But like we're keeping the story alive and with us, even if it's like coded and hidden.
Yeah.
Wasn't there something about Capricorn in the McDonald's M, right? Like, this is connected to Aries or something, or Aries, I forget. There's like the thing with the symbol for McDonald's. Aries is.
That looks.
I have never heard of that before, but that sounds like a very interesting connection.
It looks more like Capricorn horns to me than McDonald's M.
Sure. Yeah, you can kind of see that.
I don't want to be associated with McDonald's. Like, did
you see the original McDonald's? Did we already do the original McDonald's logo? This is the original McDonald's logo. It was this weird, like, this is freaking weird, right? Like a highway driving through it, but it kind of looks like this. I don't know. This is such a sigil. It just seems even more in your face magic.
I would say that there's an association there that's going to tie in Aries and.
It looks like a melting skull in the apple from Poison Apple, And
then there's an arrow from like Sagittarius. The thing with Aries and Capricorn, they say it's the connection between Merlin and Arthur. So that Capricorn is Merlin and Arthur is Aries, and that it's an older version of the same thing that's trying to teach the younger version, hey, look, this is what I learned in my old age from all the difficulties that I've gone through. I'm going to help you become the king. You know what I mean? So
anybody see what I'm seeing here? Does that, like, do you see the eyes here? It kind of looks like this, like,
looks skull. Yeah, it looks skull.
I see the skull. Yeah, with the little nose hole.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mock. What's up, Mock?
Hey, sorry I'm late.
So do you think the original McDonald's logo here looks kind of like the Poison Apple skull? Do you see the skull? What do you think?
Yeah, I always think of the Royal Arch of Freemasonry ever since I spoke with Robert Sullivan, the fourth, I think this is he's the fourth Robert Sullivan. But yeah, it kind of looks like a skull a little bit. That's a weird version of the logo.
This is the original McDonald's logo.
It almost reminds me of like Cupid in a weird way, like Cupid's bow.
The arrow, for sure. I see the arrow.
The highway driving through the Golden Arches.
Definitely see that. Yeah, it definitely looks like a sigil, like you had said before. Certainly.
Or the NASA rockets pretending to go into space and then they land in the Bermuda Triangle, actually.
At the McDonald's, right? Because at Bermuda,
they've got a McDonald's in the Bermuda Triangle. I love for all the fake
NASA
astronauts to go to when they land their rockets.
Not even kidding. I wonder if I can find a picture of the thing. McDonald's. Will they show you the thing? Here, this is the. No, that's NASA's one. I don't know if you go to but I was there. I was at the McDonald's. You couldn't go into it or anything. It was totally closed down. So I imagine that's got to be way more interesting. But yeah, on the island, right by the NASA spot, pretty trippy that they have that. It seems like look for McDonald's from now on, wherever you go, around military bases and things like that. What's all this then, eh? Have you seen this? Like,
what's in there is that's for not your bar mitzvah, but another coming of age thing. I forget what it is, but
got it.
Inside there is a your favorite passage of the Torah, and they fold it up and put it in that cube on your head.
Huh. Wow.
It's kind of like the little baby Jesus that's in the bread for the Spanish or the Mexicans, right?
But a lot of people say that's the black cube of Saturn, and
it also looks kind of like a tiny little top hat. You know what I mean?
It does look like a tiny little top hat.
Maybe that's part of where it has come from. That look like that. Very strange. Rev 4.
It's like a cube attached to a string. I don't know if that's a different sect of Judaism, but yeah, I've seen different variations of the cube on the head.
That's when I'd leave the religion. I'd be like, nah, I'm not wearing that. It looks dumb. I don't want to wear
it. I mean, I was just listening to something David Icke was talking about with the Saturn moon matrix and how Saturn is sending a signal and then the moon is focusing that signal. And I think it was Capella or one of these satellites that allegedly went out to Saturn recorded a noise that sounds like it's straight out of a horror movie Foley art studio. Like it's the most eerie noise you could ever hear. I mean, it's just so strange, but they have a image of Saturn with the hexagram. I'm sure you guys have all seen the hexagram on the North
Judgment sound.
Right. So that would probably be something giant. We could pass it over to you to give us a better interpretation of. And I think the six-pointed star encodes the cube in a lot of symbolism. That's what people say.
Mm-hmm. So the sound of Saturn is well, all planets, what they do is they're gonna move up and down like this, but they're also gonna bend. You know what I mean? They're gonna bend back and forth like this, right? So it kind of goes into what I was saying about Saturn and Jupiter. When they come into conjunction, they're sending all these planets are sending every single one of us has every single one of these planets in our birth chart, and they're in different positions and they're at different angles. If you understand astrology and astronomy, there's depending on the angle that they are to each other, you have a different outcome of personality and a different outcome of features that end up showing themselves on our planet, right? And we know this because we've been studying this for thousands of years, humanity, and sharing this information. So when any of these planets turn at different angles and also are higher or lower than each other or in a different position 360 wise around the sun and what direction they are to us on Earth, it gives us a different frequency. So Saturn is letting out a frequency, I believe, letting out a frequency of a scream that's saying this is the judgment on us. And when it does that, you know what I mean, because it communicates with Jupiter first. It actually is communicating with all planets. It's communicating with the sun. We're all receiving all these different vibrations from all the different planets, all in conjunction, right? At the same time, it's all hitting us, but it's at different rates, different speeds, different time intervals, depending on how far they are and where they're at.
Which is the river of Styx, right? I mean, so if everywhere is at once, and, and we're looking at stars and they're actually dead already. In other words, other times are distant moments from this now. It's some sort of a philosophical point about the holographic universe that every quantum entangled distance is actually here now. And so the Mars is a version of here, a different now. Similarly is Saturn, and Saturn might represent, and often has in mythology, the river of Styx, something to the extent of a Hades pool for waiting, right? Some kind of a long period. Yeah, a yuga.
And all these waterways, this is what I've tried to, kind of communicate before, is every single one of these waterways, the river, the hydrologic system is the hydra or this dragon thing, right? and it has to do with alligators and crocodiles, and that's why they're always symbolically referred to as this Capricorn character and all this stuff. So you have Sobek in the Egyptians, you have the Makara and the Hindu, and they run the rivers. They're the vehicle that the god sits on, but they're the ones that are the river. They represent the river. They represent water itself and the flow of the water. Water is why John the Baptist was using water. It cleanses us. It takes our memory off of us. So everything that we go through, everything that we do is all seen through the water, through the Hydra. Our sun is the original Hydra. It is the reason that we have hydration, or it's hydrogen, right? And it turns into a liquid form that is filling us and making us have life, and that's our soul. And we're experiencing things, and we go through goods and bads and all these things. Sometimes we try to lock it away. Sometimes we try to hide it from going back to the original Hydra, which is the sun, right? The god of our solar system. And it needs to wash us over and strip it. It takes the memory from what we have experienced, because only through our experiences can it make itself better. It's trying to figure out how to make everything better incrementally by learning from the lessons of what it is that we've gone through. And so all that Capricorn's duties are all to do with judgment and taking that memory and feeding it back to the sun, basically, so that we can get reinvigorated with the sun's energy that also bounces off Saturn, bounces off Jupiter, bounces off the moon, all these things, right? But it looks like the moon is probably taking in all the information and compounding it and then sending it to the earth. And that's why there's a Saturn moon thing, kind of get back to what Mark was talking about, is that Saturn is the judgment thing, and it's more it's got a duty because it's the furthest planet. It's the wall, right? And everything that has to do with Saturn is related to the wall. It creates a wall from any kind of planets that we associate outside, any kind of planets we associate inside, and then it brings that judgment of those things. It keeps Pluto out. It keeps the underworld out of the situation. That's where you go if you go beyond Saturn. If you defy Saturn's rules, if you make situations on this earth that are beyond what Saturn thinks is the laws, then you're going to Pluto. You're going to the underworld. You're going beyond the wall. You're not allowed back in, pretty much, right? And so these things are symbolic in a way. I'm just trying to kind of give you guys a picture. I'm not saying that this is exactly what's happening, but something like this is happening. And then it's feeding back to the moon. The moon kind of works as a wall, as a barrier to the earth, and it takes all the information from the other planets too, that have different kind of aspects. They have different kinds of feelings on it, and they're trying to come in and kind of have a little bit of a say on what happens to us, So I would leave it there, as that's a way of thinking about what's happening with the planets, these larger bodies. They're having some say that on what happens to us. But ultimately, Saturn is the one that judges us, and it'll listen to the other planets and say, okay, what kind of mix do you guys want to put on it? But remember, I'm also judging you, and I'm going to make sure that what the outcome is going to eventually come to a stronger and stronger place of balance.
But there's a transition from Saturn to Jupiter, right, where they start to worship this kind of son of Saturn. And we think of also the transition in the Jewish Torah from a god of wrath to a god of mercy. And there's a lot of these, Saturnalia seems to be a transition of this as well, the opening up and the releasing of Jupiter. So what is the deal with where's Jupiter come into play?
Yeah, Jupiter is the benefic. So Jupiter is always giving. It's extremely giving. It's always saying, hey, the judgment on humanity, should always be life. It should always be make sure that they're going. Saturn's mentality is whenever something comes to Saturn, any kind of information, everything, like, oh, they fucked up, boom, cut them off. And that's why Jupiter comes in and says, no, don't cut them off. Let's teach them a lesson. Let's just say, we'll do it like this. Or, hey, you're being too extreme, Saturn. Let's make it a little bit, let's give them something. Let's see if this works if we give them something. So there's an interplay. It's not just Saturn doing all the judgment. It's working with all the planets, but it especially works with Jupiter because, and this is why Jupiter's got to be bigger than Saturn, is because it's got to have more influence, because Saturn would just say, you know what? This experiment's over. It's dead. It's gone. Kill it. You know what I mean? Let's start over from fresh. It's an extreme. It's kind of an extreme planet. And this is not stuff I'm making up. You guys can look this up in astrology.
These seems to be all, astrological and alchemical definitions and relations to the planets. It sounds like what you're describing.
Yeah, exactly. And you could symbolically see it.
And this is another one of those games of telephone where there's like every culture has like their own version of these like muses or influences. And I was just looking up the 12 tribes to see to remind myself which tribe or which son of Jacob is December, which would be Capricorn. And it's funny because it's Benjamin, and Benjamin is the divider of the spoils. So that's kind of like judgment right there. Like that's the principality of Benjamin, is to divide the spoils.
And Benjamin's the youngest of the children and of the fairest, right? Of Rachel. So
yeah. And it's always the youngest, and it's usually the youngest of 12 or the youngest of 9 that you'll see these Capricorn characters show up. It's always the youngest.
Yeah,
one.
It's not even youngest as so much as like last. It's like that's the last thing is judgment, and then of course even in the non-Rastafarian version of the Bible, that's where it ends with is judgment too. And it's the same thing with the planets. It's the same thing with the Greek pantheon of gods. It's another one of these examples of it's a true story about the fundamental nature of existence that we can't look directly at. So every culture has their own like game of telephone of changing it, keeping the story is alive. Like you can't escape it, but every culture and every time has their own way of dancing around it.
Yeah.
That painting you just showed before, Xirtus, is called Saturn of Reuben, and then you just showed a map where Reuben is right above.
I was really hard. I was trying so hard not to say like in Reuben's where they make great sandwiches. I tried so hard.
I'm a Reuben, and Reuben is the principality of Reuben is he has the vision. He's the ruler of the eyes. Like
thank you. I actually was like, it was not rhetorical. I was really interested. Like there must be a reason why Reubens come from the Reuben tribe. You know what I mean? That seems
on
like
your judgment, just another point to your judgment talk. Judgment does show up as the second to last major arcana in the tarot at number 20. The only thing that comes after it is the world at number 21. Very interesting. So yeah, the last.
And if you look at the lunar mansions and the nakshatras, right? The 20, 21, and 22 are the very ending, and this is where Brahma comes in, and he's the creator or the recreator. It's got to keep things cycling and stuff like that, and it feeds back. Brahma is technically a sign of Santa Claus. This is
dude, patent pending trademark Xirtus idea. We need to make a kid's toy that you spin it, and it's like, and the Taurus goes, and the Capricorn's about, and it'll just
man.
Teach your kids astrology early.
It makes the Saturn sound.
Astrological spinner.
Lantern, it makes the horrible Saturn sound.
Saturn.
I think we might be onto something.
So if you look up the
I play that.
I'm
learning so much. Say that again about the chakras. What?
Look up the hidden nakshatra. It's called a bijit, right? And there's other people that talk about this, and they don't really say it correctly. I don't think they don't understand exactly what it is. It's a hidden nakshatra. It's the 22nd nakshatra.
What's a bijit?
A bijit is it's actually Brahma. There you go. A bijit nakshatra.
Oh, it's a bijit. I have to try to. Oh, I screwed it up. There's no way.
No, you got it down there.
Yeah.
So this nakshatra talks about there's like a bunch
everything
of
he says is fact checked by Wikipedia. Sorry, keep going.
Wikipedia.
So This nakshatra is a lot of people believe that this nakshatra is used to actually put a president into place now. This is why they put the president in on January 26th, right?
Oh.
Something like that. Right? That they're trying to hone in on this nakshatra. This nakshatra comes after the nakshatras of victory, and they're represented by elephants. There's two
and
elephants.
it's of course Abhijit is Vega, which is hilarious if you think about it. All the the value of Vega for the Spanish, for the Muslims, the parallax star. The reason named Vega even connect to the mountains, the idea of like the high mountains or the like Mount Everest or Mount Olympus.
Yes, and it's right next to the Draco or the pole stars. So this is another thing, is that people don't understand. We've had one pole star for the last so many years, so many thousands of years.
Yeah, right.
But the pole stars actually are all the way around in a big circle, and you can fit the moon right in between the pole stars, all the different pole stars that have moved. And they move between these pole stars, and one of them is Draco, right? And so they're trying to point you towards the fact that all these pole stars and the stars around them are this cluster of stars that represent Brahma, and that this is kind of like the belly button of Vishnu that Brahma comes out of, and that he is the rose, he is the lotus flower, right? And that all things are created by Brahma. If you look in Hindu or Hindu mythology or Hindu information, is they will say that that's the father of everything. He created everything, all the monsters, all the humans, all the Suryas, everything that there is in this world had to be created out of Brahma, because Brahma was having an inner dialogue with Vishnu coming out of his belly button, came into nothing, into the matrix, and didn't know what to do, and had this like dialogue saying, what do I do? And Vishnu kind of had a dialogue back saying, look, just meditate and figure it out. And this is why he has 4 ways. This is where the cross comes from. There's 4 ways of thinking, and this is why we have it's a duality, or it's a cross way of thinking, that there's 4 different directions in essence, and they're going to cross, and you have to bring all those features into what the creation that you're going to create. So that's what it's symbolically trying to tell us, is that we are a creation of these 4 directions, and there's going to be mixtures of all of it. And Brahma starts off with very basic mixtures, and you get the first layer of gods, then it starts mixing down more from those gods, and then you got the next layer of gods, and it comes down like they're temples, right? It goes from a peak, like a pyramid, and it goes down further and further and further until you get to humanity. And now we're so mixed with all the different layers and all the different gods that came before us and everything, that we become these very unique characters. But everything gets more basic as you go back to the original God, as you get back to Brahma and you get back to Vishnu. And that they represent relates to the pole star, right? That's the center point that it all comes from. It comes from one thing, then it has layers of the next and layers of the next and layers of the next.
So it's a lizard and a polar bear? Like, what is this guy here? Ursa Minor.
He doesn't look like a very good bear. He looks like a honey badger.
Yeah, right. Ursa Minor.
Yeah, so there's different layers of things that have happened over time, depending on the culture that has put their. So all these things are just stars, right?
Yeah,
say, okay, these stars are in a certain area, and so there's constellations. And this is what I'm trying to tell you guys before, is that the constellations themselves don't mean anything. They're not actually there. There's different distance. Those stars sometimes are way further away. Some of them are way closer. Some of them are dead, right? I mean, you guys understand all that.
Yeah.
The only reason that they were marking anything in the sky is because if you take where the sun is and where the planets are and where Earth is, then you can triangulate by the backdrop, right? And the backdrop's always going to change over time because of the precession and all this stuff. So just because we're in a different constellation than where it is that it was originally at thousands of years ago doesn't mean anything, because what it's really calculating is the sun influence and the planetary influences. That's all. Mainly the sun and the planetary influences. And I can bring some guys on here that really know all this stuff and can explain it to a T. You should never follow the constellations. The only thing that the constellations matter at all is telling you what aeon it is. We're actually traveling into a different aeon when you have the constellation of Capricorn is now moved over to where the constellation of Scorpio was, and there's a golden gate there. And Capricorn is considered the time period where you get the golden age. And so when you get it to mash up with the golden gate, you're opening up a new gate, and that's what we're going into. And this should be a warning if people are really understanding what's going on, is now we're going into a time where Capricorn is into the golden gate. It's at level with the galactic center. And this is why we're seeing the things that we're seeing, is that the judgment period is now galactic. And no one understands that. That's why Ophiuchus is stepping down onto the ecliptic. This is why
I feel like there's some people, like there's some Indian physicists and like computer solid state physicists, like computer programmers who work for like Google and Adobe, who were brought up on this stuff, who totally know this stuff. And you can see it in the art. Like even here, you got a UFO, mushroom head, halo, like in space. They all know what's up. Not all, but I mean, you know, out of 1 billion, how many people live in India? Like 1 billion Indians. So I get the feeling that some of this data has made it. You know what I mean? To the people.
Because these constellations, if you look at them, are actually telling a story within themselves, right? So we don't just have constellations that are on the ecliptic. We have constellations that are all 360, right? And what's happening is when these constellations are starting, the ecliptic is moving towards some of these ones that are 360. The one that goes over from the golden gate to the silver gate is actually coming into the ecliptic. And this is why Ophiuchus is showing up. And they're showing us through the imagery. It has to do with Hercules, all these characters that go into the underworld. This is all underworld symbology that's happening right now. It's showing us that is hitting the ecliptic. And once it hits the ecliptic, that we're going to live in this underworld symbology. And a lot of people say, hey, 2012 is actually 2020 or 2024. That's happening right now, that they just weren't exact with their measurements. And I think they were keeping a celestial clock to show us when these resets happen. And judgment, a huge amount of judgment is going to happen, and a character that has to do with judgment. You got your Vishnu, your Krishna, your Buddha, your Jesus character that always come in these periods that align with these things.
Do you think that coincides with the doomsday clock, which is almost out? Like, do you think they're counting down to 2024?
Yes, and I think that this is the major character. We've seen characters every 2,000 years. Jesus was warning us. Like Jesus was saying in his things, he says, there's this character, it's called the Comforter. You guys have heard of the Comforter? And people, and the Christians say, Revelation. They say this Comforter character is just him coming back. But he's saying, I think in his own words, he's saying that there's a character that's very similar to me. There's an aeonic character that comes every certain period. It's coming, and it's going to tell you exactly what I'm telling you. And when it comes, it's going to happen what I'm talking about right now, because he had to keep telling his disciples, I'm telling you, it's not happening right now. Heaven on earth is not going to happen right now. It's going to happen in this future generation. And they refer,
guys, yeah.
Oh my God, the Comforter is not Santa Claus. It's Krampus. That's nuts. I don't know.
I'm here to comfort you. Where were you going?
Yeah. And what is the Comforter? What is another word for it? Is to pacify. Right. And where did we finally reach in humanity, at least in Western culture? We reached the Pacific, right? The pacifier. And they put the Golden Gate there. They put the Golden Gate Bridge, and they called it the Golden Gate. So they think, as far
right, where Lemuria belongs. Right.
Yes, we're Lemuria. We've gone back to the beginning again. They think we've hit the farthest west there is before you go east, and then we've already conquered those.
Sorry,
areas.
Graham Hancock. I know he's super into the whole Bermuda Triangle, and that he wants it to be there, but look at it.
It's the end of the world. Technically, it's the end of the world. At least the Masons did a very specific thing when they got to the Golden Gate. They did this procession that they went across. They said, this is the Passion of Christ. He's going to go across these certain stages. He's going to go through all of his passions. And this is where this pacifier, that this comforter is going to show up in this area. And this is the same place that they created all of our technologies. It's the same place that they made all the phones we have. The reason that we're connecting with each other, that we can see the land of the dead. Everything that has ever happened and now is dead, we can go back and look at it. You know what I mean? I think everything is updated minute by minute. All that stuff is dead. We're traveling through the valley of the shadow of death. You know, right now, we just don't realize that we're traveling through the shadow of death. And
Zealandia was so huge. It's weird when you look at Zealandia and you start to see like these land paths. They're like, that's a lot of straight line. You know what I mean? Like, that's pretty weird. You've got this in all these areas that connect these spots that just seem like they were parts of larger routes. And now that's also where the last of the dinosaurs, and like you consider Zealandia the bird island, New Zealand's the bird island now, because of all the crazy diverse bird fauna. But that's also because when there's an environmental disaster, there are eggs that are maybe the last safe eggs are at this spot, which take hundreds of miles of flying to get to. And then the eggs hatch and then they keep flying and it just creates a world circuit. So this might have been the place that's the safest. And earlier I was going to show the female computer, if you look at the female computers who revolutionized astronomy, one of the things that they say is that they had to get a lot of the pictures from other places because, the ozone. And the best is Chile, because Chile has no ozone over it. Ozone hole innocent of Chile's ills. Ozone hole exposes Chile's city, et cetera, et cetera. You can get into this idea, but the worst zero ozone over Chile, which is why it's so useful for taking pictures with observatories. And they have some of the best multi-million-dollar telescopes and observatories in the Atacama Desert there.
That's pretty cool. I didn't know that.
I mean, it sucks because there's no ozone, but it is what it is.
Chile has blazingly fast internet as well. I didn't know that. But yeah,
it's all right. It's all right. I think Brazil's still the best. Did they get it? Wait,
no,
Chile...
I saw a recent map and Chile was rated like tip of the top.
Oh, okay. Well, this is by 2020. They've
Some would say tippy top.
Right,
that's cool.
Right up there with the primo cream of the creme. Yeah.
How about Peru? Is Peru internet any better? When I was in Peru, the internet was so bad. How bad was the internet? Oh, so bad. It took 3 days to download Waterworld at 320 lines of resolution on a Raspberry Pi.
They're like, you want to go to Machu Picchu? You're like, no, I'm going to watch Waterworld. Thanks. So.
I've been to Machu Picchu. I was
like, talk about a reset, huh? Waterworld.
Hey, before we move on, I got to correct myself. The tribe of Benjamin is not the last tribe. I was counting from January, but the calendar starts in April. The last tribe is the tribe of Gad. That would be Capricorn. And I don't know what the principalities of the tribe of Gad are. I don't know how to Google that. But anyways, my bad.
Territory of Gad.
Well, if it starts in Aries, then it would be Pisces. That would be Gad, right? Or no?
Right above Reuben, bro. They're like the North Koreans of the Reubens. Is there like a Gad burger? Do they make something good?
But I'm saying that's the month of December, which is Benjamin comes right before Reuben. So Benjamin is Pisces. Capricorn is Gad. Gad is what falls on December.
So Gad is before. Sorry, Gad is before Benjamin. You're saying or no?
Oh, so Gad is December. The first month is Reuben in April.
So Gad Sagittarius or Cap? I didn't say
Capricorn.
Capricorn.
Yeah. See, the only problem that we have with that is that the fact that they took it back, 12 days or whatever. Now it's in the middle of December. So some of December is Sagittarius.
Also, the 12 tribes are based on when the new moon was in the particular year. So it's different every year. Like you might fall on that. If you're trying to check someone from the past, what tribe they were, you have to know what day they were born and check the moon calendar.
I'm going to attempt a hard segue. And that reminds me, because Saturn, because the abortion. If you think about it, God, Saturn, and we were thinking about how he has, he's eating kids. So, and that brings me back to modern times. So what's going on? Is this playing? Make sure that pauses.
Oh, yeah. We got to talk about that article real quick.
Yeah, no dissent on abortion allowed at Hogan's Lavelles.
Yeah, this was in the Wall Street Journal. This was nuts. It's just a lady who worked for 44 years at a global law firm, big law firm, Hogan Lovells. They had a talk, and it's just the only reason I brought it up is because, this is nuts. Always be on your guard. Always be aware. We are living in this time of intense ideologies and how they can be weaponized and sharpened against you. So this lady, 44 years, working at Hogan Levels, right? Legit, powerful, strong.
Strong woman. Strong
Robin
woman.
Keller. They, after the repeal of Roe v. Wade, they had an open call. This global law firm, Hogan Levels, had a global call, open call, private call for all their female lawyer employees. All sat down. I was like, yo, so what do you think about this? And according to Robin Keller in the Wall Street Journal, she was saying that a lot of her coworkers were like, oh my God, this is terrible. The very familiar line we hear in the mainstream media. Robin stood up and said, actually, I think it's good. And she said, I think it's okay that states get to make up their own minds. I think it's okay. And she also went further and started talking about how some have discussed the disproportionate effects of abortion on certain communities could be considered in some aspects genocidal, right?
Yeah, ethnicidal at least. I mean, obviously, if you've got entire areas where everyone who's living there can't afford to have kids, and then some new community gentrifies and moves in, what else do you want to call that?
That's right. That's right. I mean, this is a very understandable perspective, not something that is even unheard of at this day and age in the discussions that we have. However, Hogan Levels decided to, within 24 hours, first of all, ladies started screaming on the Zoom call, calling Robin Keller a racist and saying that, like, just racist things that you're saying. They freaked out. Some of them said they couldn't breathe on the Zoom call because of the things she said.
They can't breathe, really?
Within 24 hours. She was now at the point she was emeritus, so she was not technically a partner, so she was not hired. Again, 44-year career, lady was legit. She was just kind of rolling with it part-time, but she was basically cut off, and blackballed within the entire legal community within 24 hours of a call that was supposed to be private, safe, and open to communicate your views. A global law firm. Oh, and just as a nice cherry on top, she, being the lawyer that she was, said, yo, let's get a third party in on this. And they did. And the third legal party rolled up and said, no, actually, you're a racist. Legally, in so much that she, I believe.
I mean, 44 years, she's got to be ready to retire. That must be why
she broke the very quicksandy corporate agreement that you make when you sign on as an employee when it comes to discrimination via race. With her language is what legally was decided. That's how is that, man? So yeah, here we are today of all days where these things are being promoted in our face. We must be aware, and we must continue on with the esoteric information drops that Giant was giving us so that we can rise above and beyond this kind of human on human persecution.
And this is so she wrote the article even like because they outed her
and an opinion piece
and end up in the MJU. That's the WJU. That's amazing. I mean, wow.
Ideology ideology is a killer. You know, you got to be careful about ideology. It's very important to stay mentally limber and flexible, and not put your roots down like that, because it's just the enemy of logic and learning. And I try to communicate that to people all the time, that you really don't want to legislate an argument. Like if there's an argument going on about like abortion, you know what I mean? You really don't want to like try to get your way through legislation. A lot of people go crazy when I say that. They're like, well, no, we just have to save the kids. And I'm like, okay, but my way will actually save the kids. Like your direct way of just going to the kid and saving it, like doesn't save the most kids. The way to save the most kids is to actually win the argument about abortion. And the way you win the argument, well, you can't win the argument once you've already legislated. Now you've painted people into a corner where you're like, your argument loses to the extent that if you live the way you want, like now you're going into a cage. You know what I mean? So it's like
you criminalize,
you lose your ability to persuade that person. You know what I mean? For generations. So
you ever read the CIA sabotage field manual or any of the like? They're like, leave the water running, all kinds of stuff. But the similar thing.
Let me just quickly put a capstone on my point before people think I'm pro-choice and pro-life, but I think choice is more important than life, because life without choice is meaningless to me. So
yeah,
I want all the babies to live, but I think the way you get to that is by allowing the people to make the choice. When you steal choice from people, they just they're going to resent that that more than that's going to short circuit their ability to get to the point where you are.
Legislation is also in general a problem, because as soon as you start to legislate something, it's accelerationism. And so that's what I was taking it as, is that when you make a law about something that's like, you have to walk dogs, then people are forced to walk dogs all day. You know, something weird happens. It gets worse than the original. There's always a good intention. And then
you're always creating new state powers that will be inherited by different people with the opposite ideology and will interpret it the exact opposite way.
So then you've got the pound going around and picking up people that aren't walking dogs, or something like that. Yeah, that's what happens. But this is intentional a lot of the time. There are people, like, for instance, and we've talked about this before, but the neoconservative Trotsky connection, right? That the Trotskyite Soviet socialists who were not into Stalin ended up as the neoconservatives, and the neoconservatives became the Republicans. As the Republicans come from Soviet Trotskyites, but the Democrats from Stalinites. So it's kind of a fair thing there. And a big thing is both parties loved accelerationism. Accelerationism is an idea of deteriorationalism, as Baudrillard talked. And what the point of this is very similar to the sabotage manual. And it's that if you make enough legislation, if you make enough bureaucracy, if you increase all of the disruptive technology and change whatever, accelerationism will destroy the system from within. And you can say, okay, yeah, we're going to make laws about gay marriage, and interestingly enough, I'm just see if we can find the article. Ireland outlaws straight marriage. For one day, they didn't read it properly. They signed this thing into law. It said that gays can get married. What they didn't read about it is that it said that only gays can get married, or something to that effect. It didn't it wasn't specified that straight heterosexuals could get married as well. So it didn't matter because people weren't going to. But for a day, it was illegal to get married if you were not, if you were of the opposite sex, and they had to repeal and change the law. And everyone was celebrating, oh, isn't this great that we've created this gay marriage law? But rather than what they should have done, which is just get rid of any law that tells you how you can get married, do whatever you want, right, without the state getting involved. No, let's have the state make a law about it, and then
I forget who it was that tweeted.
Go ahead, Seth. Sorry.
I forget who it was that tweeted today. It might have been AOC or somebody of that ilk, that they were like, oh, no, I'm sorry. It's Pete Buttigieg. He's like, it's amazing. He's like, I woke up today and on the docket was my ability to retain my marriage. And I forget the exact wording he is. He's like, why don't you go first, and I'll let me look up his exact tweet.
Well, the thing I was going to mention is actually agreeing with you, Seth, is that this world seems to be, if you look at the history, look at Buddhism and all these different things, is that they're telling you that it's about us learning our lessons and doing the right thing. It's not about trying to enforce people to do the right things. Enforcing people, forcing them to do anything is always going to get a negative or opposite reaction. What you want them to do is to do the right thing because they actually feel that that's the right thing in their heart. You got to convince them through other means, not by force. So that's all I wanted to state, is that, really what we're trying to do is we're trying to become better and better people by our own heart telling us that's what we're supposed to be doing, by interactions that we're having, not telling people this is what you need to do.
Legalism actually is a Chinese philosophy that it comes from an anti-Confucius or Laotian stance that, Taoist, is anti-Taoist, to say that all men is evil. You have to create systems to control them, and so that basically legal. That is the system. We consider this to be a very Western idea. It is not.
Yeah, you don't want to. The laws actually say that these are the things you have defenses against, as people putting legal terms and stuff like this against you. Yeah. That these are things that you have freedoms from, and you got to stand up against them when people are trying to put these pressures on you, trying to force you to do things.
Right.
You never want. Yeah.
You got to finish the argument. I mean, you put like a pin in the argument and you just legislate, and you never actually came to a conclusion. It's like going to bed angry. I have the Pete Buttigieg tweet in front of me. He said, "Strange feeling to see something as basic and as personal as the durability of your marriage come up for debate on the Senate floor." And I replied, "This isn't the first time that the durability of marriage came up on the Senate floor. When definitions become fluid, there's no solid ground for anyone to stand on." So this is the exact example of legislating something and then it can be interpreted a different way. Basically, you gave the state, as soon as the state had powers over marriage, the institution was already taken away from its original definition. Sorry, I'm having a hard time getting this thought out, but my point is that once you legislate
civil
something,
unions,
it's the understanding of it gets lost in the legislation. You have it like the 10 Commandments. You no longer need to understand what anything's about. It's all learned by rote and memorized, and you don't understand the thousands of years of philosophy and argument that led up to the law.
I think it would be really easy. What they need to do is just separate. And I know this is kind of like like having a monkey go to like a furry monster or a metal monster with milk. But if you separate marriage from weddings, you know what I mean? Because everybody loves parties. Like if you want to get married, and the Vegas wedding, it's a thing. You go to Vegas, you get a wedding on, and you leave, and then they don't stay together 99% of the time. I think there's a few special examples, but this is very American, and this is what's happened is we're like, wow, I want to have a wedding. It's going to be so much fun at the party. And they're not thinking about what a marriage is. And a marriage is like that scene in The Postman where like she shoots the mule so she can feed the guy because he's been shot. Marriage is a really rough thing, is what I'm trying to say.
Great reference. Yeah.
And it has to do with
love,
Mary.
Specific,
right?
Yeah.
Doesn't it have to do with Mary? Is the fact that it's a woman that a man is getting hitched to is a Mary, right? So when you're doing this, when you're getting married, it's a man hooking up with a woman. And if they have a like you said, they want to have a wedding, they want to have the party and all that stuff, then go ahead and have the party. But the legal part that you do is separate anyways. And originally it was not even a legal thing. It was so that everybody in the town, everybody within the county or whatever knew that you two are together. So there's no way that you can cross the line because you know that these two are together and there's witnesses there. This is a very established thing that you're with your Mary, and this is your Mary now. This is your woman, right?
And the witness is important because you're taking an oath, and it's like a whole interesting conversation is like, what is an oath for? I was going back and forth with Ryan Stone on Twitter today about the difference between a decision and an oath, and I was like, basically, like an oath is like a decision that you're staking your honor against as collateral. You're like, I swear before whatever I consider to be holy or sacred that this decision is for life, and then you need a witness to that, but you don't need the state to be the witness, obviously.
Freaking state trying to replace the church.
What
church
do you guys
replace
think about
the state
oaths, like taking an oath for life like that? It's a very courageous thing to do, and usually people do it when they're young, and then it's just like you gotta keep with it.
I think so I had a friend in Denmark whose parents never got married, and he asked his parents like, why not? And there's like a lot of his friends' parents who did get married aren't together anymore, but his parents who didn't get married still are. And so he's like, why didn't you get married? And then the mom always was like, I don't know, I think your dad had a bad knee or something, just kind of bad Danish humor. But they ended up together, keeping their word, never having to make a promise they might not be able to keep or something like that. And I think that might also help sometimes is you just do the thing, build the thing, have the thing, and then but I think also it's hard for people because when it gets to like a child, you're like, yeah, well, how long is that going to last? I mean, what happens if we get upset at each other in the middle of it? And so it's definitely difficult for people that want to just live happily ever after. It's not that it's not what it is.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that happen actually in astrology where they say that depending on where your planets are and everything in your astrology, that you will not have a successful marriage. And people obfuscate that and they get past that by not actually having the marriage, not having the ceremony and stuff like that, but staying together faithfully with each other. And that's some of the they have remedies for different astrology.
Yeah. Interesting, yeah.
I think
what are some of those hot placements? What are some of the things to look out for in a chart if one is to be wary of the marriage?
It's going to be something to do with your Venus, and it's going to usually have to do with the 7th house. So if you
if a girl asks you about your astrology, you should probably be careful.
By the way, something to do with your
Venus
Venus
in the seventh house, baby.
Comedy.
Hands off.
Wait, sorry, Seth?
Something to do with your Venus is a great title for a romantic comedy. Something to do with
your Venus is showing.
So
yeah, like I could try to be specific about that, but the only reason that I can't be is because there's all these little minute details. There's a lot of things to astrology. I'm not trying to be vague when I tell you guys.
I got you. Yeah. Huh.
There is. We can go into it. We can have shows about it, and I can go into all the little tiny minute details. But it's going to depend on a lot of different things. So anyway,
one time I was dating a really good-looking girl that I met at a rave when I was like 20 or something in San Francisco, and she ended it as soon as she found out we were both Aries. She's like, "Oh no," she's like, "I don't even want to bother," and I was like, "Everything's going great."
Butt
it's good.
that shouldn't matter as much as all the things. Yeah,
it's good to have one Aries at a time. I've noticed that because they're yeah.
You guys are strong.
They're the first. Doesn't matter what.
I was born on my father's birthday too, so we never got along. So yeah, you don't want two of the exact same thing. That's like two magnetic poles rejecting each other.
Rams butt heads, right? That's what they say. Same with Capricorn. Yeah.
What's that? Now we have to go around and find out everyone else's sign.
Yeah, what's your guys' signs?
Are we doing sun signs? Are we doing rising?
Sun signs. That's the most.
That's dangerous information. You want to put that out there for the whole world? I mean, a lot of these people are into astrology. They can use that against you.
Yeah. Well, they need the chart. I don't think the sun sign alone would give them. They'd also need the specific. But yeah, they need a lot more information than your sun sign. He's a Taurus. Get him. Like that's not.
I'm a Pisces by 2 minutes. I'm on the cusp, and I was born literally like on the other side of Aquarius into Pisces. I have the same birthday as John Travolta, George Washington, and Yoko Ono. I'm
tons of other people though. Tons of others. There's a lot of interesting.
I just think those are pretty funny. Yeah, but then and then Leo rising and Leo moon, double Leo. I don't know all the other ones exactly.
Here you are just giving out all this information.
Yeah. I'm like, my stuff's been out there. This thing is people have found
Leo rising. Here you are in front of the camera.
4chan doxed my astrology, which I thought was really interesting. Of all things to worry about, like you can find him in the 10th house. It's like what?
Hey, cool.
Mark, you've been awfully quiet. You want to talk about your astrology?
What's your chart, Mark?
Well, my birthday was last month, so you could take it belated.
It's fair.
Yeah, Libra is my sun sign.
Libra. Do you know your rising?
But I agree with you, and I would rather keep all.
Right? Yeah, you got to be careful with that stuff. It's true. Yeah. It's out there. You know what? Hard recursive feedback loop on the delay pedal to Coca-Cola and New Coke. Speaking of Santa Claus, Coca-Cola, and everything else like that, what do you think happened with New Coke? Because I think there's a big conspiracy here. I have some thoughts.
I am familiar with the New Coke and Crystal Pepsi head-to-head marketing campaigns.
Did you live through it? Did you feel it? What happened?
I was very young. I was very young at the time, but yes, I was alive.
And people were angry all around you.
And no one could figure out what was what and what tasted good. They couldn't make up their own minds because the news was telling them one thing and papers were telling them another thing. And then the way they would set up Crystal Pepsi was next to some New Coke came out with a different Coke as well. Or was New Coke the fake Coke? And then Coke Classic was the real thing.
Right. That's right.
Yeah. New Coke was just like a dud on purpose to screw with Crystal Pepsi.
You think that was the plan?
I think New Coke
I had read that.
New Coke came out before Crystal Pepsi, I think.
Right, and so then people were like looking for something to replace it, and they're like, "Dude,
there was some Coca-Cola did something real dirty."
I drink poppies.
They threw in something.
Was about Royal Crown Cola, man? I always thought Royal
RC
Crown
Cola classic, dude. Every time I'd mini golf,
that's the Libertarian Party of colas.
Yeah, it's pretty good. And got a case of it. And I remember we were drinking it. I'm like, I hate soda, but it's nostalgic. Yeah,
RC's fantastic. Yeah.
So then basically, Seth, how about you? Did you remember?
My big. I remember the whole marketing campaign for New Coke, and then I remember this was before there was ability for anything to go viral via the internet. It was just via like the neural link that exists between humans.
Look at the glycerin.
My family, we went and we got a case or a 6-pack or whatever of the New Coke, and we all tried it, and we were like, it sucks. We hated it. And then it just turned out it went, viral via 3 TV stations, and it turned out everyone else hated it too.
Well, so when you say it sucks, you hated it. Like, what were you expecting? What did you like about Coke originally? You had Coke before that, regular Coca-Cola.
What was the difference?
I
think Coke is is kind of like the perfect cola. You know, it's like the it is the archetype of a cola. You know, I was joking about RC Cola being the best. It's definitely not. I mean, it's a nice change. It's an archetypical cola. They really did with all their herbs and spices or whatever. I think it's just the perfect.
And then
I would
new
love
Coke.
to drink it all the time. I never drink it because I'm a healthy person, but I would love to just chug Coca-Cola all the time out of the glass bottles with Santa on it.
Dude, if there was no fructose corn, we'll get there. But so with the new Coke, do you remember anything at all? Like this flavor, was it sweeter? Was it flatter?
Was
it more bitter?
Flatter and sweeter. Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
It had more of everything, but it kind of cut through the carbonation. But so it had like more of the spices and more of the sugar. So it was just kind of like became like more of like a dessert, and you had less of like that.
Gotcha. And then, so do you remember? What about Crystal Pepsi? What was that like?
I don't remember how it tastes. I think there's something about it being clear that like interfered with your ability to taste it at all. But what I do, I love how like, because I'm the old one, like I was like, what do you remember, Grandpa, about Crystal Pepsi?
But, I asked Doug too. I mean,
what I remember the best is that I'll tell you about the Great War of Crystal Pepsi. What I remember the best is one of the best Saturday Night Live skits ever. It's Crystal Gravy.
Oh my God, I love Crystal Gravy.
Like thick and clear, and they're pouring it all over turkey.
Yeah. Everything about that commercial is like the truth. It's the truth. Crystal, and he's dunking the chicken wing.
Yeah, Crystal
into the Crystal Gravy. Just lay some Crystal Gravy. Hey, yeah, it was good. All right.
Also, I remember about it is there was a Van Halen song like "Do It Right Here and Now," like whatever that song is. It's like really like a emotional piano build up, like and then it was like all like a secret campaign, like you didn't even know it was for. This had a commercial where the whole screen's white, and you're hearing this unreleased Van Halen song that's all emotional. And then it was for Crystal Pepsi, and then as soon as people had it, they're just like, same thing as Zima. It's just like, who knows what makes a soft drink go or crash, but it's one or the other, man. It's either to the moon, people just love it and like can't get enough, or it's like people instantly reject it, like Zima.
Yeah,
Zima, I remember those commercials.
Well, so you guys know, the whole thing with the human growth. What was it? Pepsi aborted.
That's
fetal tissue flavoring. They've stopped using now. They've halted the use of it.
Fetal tissue flavoring.
You guys hear about the contest winner who Pepsi tricked into thinking that he would win an F-160 fighter jet, like whatever that fancy fighter jet is? Pepsi was trying to do some kind of promotion where they would win, like get all sorts of people to switch to Pepsi by buying Pepsi points and getting Pepsi points by buying Pepsi. And some guy was like, "Oh, okay, so you're telling me if I buy $700,000 worth of Pepsi points, I can get a $32 million jet? Sure, here you go, Pepsi." He sent him the check, and Pepsi sent him the check back with 2 cases of Pepsi and said, "Oh, you got us. Sorry, we didn't think anyone ever do this." And I think he took it to court.
Wow.
Yep. There's a Netflix documentary on it right now that's out. I haven't seen the documentary, but I do know the story, and it is interesting. Simultaneously, PepsiCo, what's going around PepsiCo lead, if you look into the lead product. So fastest way to do this, Pepsi, Soviet Union. Was the first product.
Folks, just hear about it on a podcast. Screw Netflix. I mean,
right, absolutely. Watch series.id.
So disappointing.
But
I heard talk about it.
The first Western product sold in the Soviet Union was Pepsi because the PepsiCo company needed to get across pirate waters, and using Rockefeller's LEAD program, they were able to sell and trade barrels of Pepsi for Soviet nuclear tankers with all of the ammunition and guns they would ever need to get through Somali and different terrorist pirate waters. And so while Pepsi was saying, hey, you could win a jet, Pepsi was going around literally buying equipment from the falling apart Soviet Union to militarize themselves. And so there is a PepsiCo Navy, essentially.
Pepsi's color scheme, like, very similar to the Russian flag, and like there were at least
it works very well, yeah. Red, white, and blue. But yeah, that's a very Masonic
like
thing.
In that same pattern, it's like with the red and the white and the blue in that same top to bottom pattern.
Yeah, I mean, Yeah, if you can see, I mean, it's ideologically, it was perfect. It's true. It worked really well. It's kind of the anti Coca-Cola. Coca-Cola is such a Westernism, and so it just wasn't a very Soviet available product. People didn't like it when it was made available in the fallen Soviet Union because they associated Pepsi with like freedom and Americanism, but in a Soviet sense, so it's the Generation Pepsi, right? And there's that amazing movie and book, Generation Pie, which is for Pepsi, for P, and it's the Eyes Wide Shut of Russia. Definitely need to watch it. I recently took it off my channel, but you can watch it on the Odyssey channel of mine for free.
Well, that Saturn photo, please do not bring it up again. That we looked at earlier, it reminded me of a scene from. It reminded me of a scene from Society. Have you guys ever seen this movie? I watched it.
Right, I love Society. I made Tim Pool watch that movie.
Okay. Yeah, I watched it in a hiatus since I last been on the show, and yeah, it was just really strange. And then I saw that Saturn painting. I'm like, oh my gosh, the guy's doing the same thing that they do in the final scene where they're like literally attaching their mouths to some dude and like pulling his life force out of him. So, I mean, the movie was very interesting and not grotesque up the final scene. So I recommend it even for squeamish people like myself. It's very
everybody needs to see Society. It's the most important movie. It's interesting. It was made in Hollywood.
You always say that.
Americans didn't get this movie. They're like, what? There's like a group of rich people that run the world. I mean, yeah. But like Europeans saw this movie and they're like, oh yeah,
Here's the real scoop, and I can't take credit for this. This is all the research of a guy named Recluse. He's got a very interesting podcast called The Farm. He clued me into this mystery called the Albacore Mystery, where several different movies feature a country club, yacht club type elite organization called the Albacore Club. It's in the movie Chinatown. It's in this movie Society, and I think it's in a few others. And it's based on a real play or group called the Club of Avalon or the Avalon Club, and their location is based on Catalina Islands. I hope I'm not repeating myself. I might have talked about this with you guys before because I've been thinking about it for a few weeks.
It's all right. There's always new people,
Yeah, no, I don't.
I don't remember this any.
Okay,
yeah, I don't think so.
Yeah, keep going.
Yeah, well, that's about it. It's kind of hinted at in these movies that there's a group of elite people that have some kind of group on Catalina Island, which seems like the Jekyll Island of the West, in my opinion. And then also the weird connection with Natalie Wood, who's the woman who died on the boat with
Christopher Walken.
Yeah, so there's that connection too, because apparently those folks were all part of that group or that nexus. So
that makes a certain amount of sense.
Yeah, so that I don't necessarily watch movies like Society, but when I heard there was like this through line mystery between all these different movies, I became really fascinated. I watched Chinatown, and then I watched Society, and it kind of reminds me of Quentin Tarantino's kind of idea of like how all of his movies are in the same realm, so to speak. Like they're all written differently, but they're within the same world that he's creating. And I think that's what different directors are doing, maybe unbeknownst to each other, when they're hinting at this club, or maybe they're a part of it too. I mean, I don't know if the director of Society made any other big movies beyond that, but the guy who made Chinatown, I mean, Jack Nicholson was in Chinatown. He's obviously done very well for himself.
Is it a Kubrick? Didn't Kubrick make Chinatown, or do I have that wrong?
No, I don't think
Kubrick did.
Eyes Wide Shut.
Was he involved in it somehow? I just thought he was involved.
I don't know.
Not that I know of.
Did he do One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest with Nicholson?
No, Stanley Kubrick.
Kubrick was not one.
Right, that
was Jack
Ken Kesey.
Yeah,
But
he wrote the script. Yes.
Right. Chinatown, Polanski and Stanley Kubrick's 19. So wait. Chinatown, Polanski.
Polanski's in Chinatown. He's the guy who comes out of nowhere and cuts Jack Nicholson's nose in like the early beginning part of the movie when he's snooping around the power plant in the river.
Yeah. I don't think I don't think that he had anything to do with Chinatown.
Are we going to go back to the baby fetal cells and the Pepsi?
We're about to. Well, actually, so we did the thing where Coca-Cola. You guys remember Coca-Cola and cocaine? That's like the old thing. And Coca.
They still order and receive cocaine, and they still do use it, just not the psychoactive element. But there's still derivatives of the actual cocoa leaf and cocaine in Coca-Cola until today.
Let's prove that
they get a special legal exemption to use it.
Let's prove that really quickly. This is Stepan Labs. If you go and you type in, looking for New Jersey's plant, nation's only legal importer of cocaine, you can find all the articles from the AP, and you can find out Stepan Labs is the one that does it in New Jersey, and that they drive after they take Schedule II cocaine that can be turned into Novocaine and other medical tools. The barrels of the residue is brought to Coca-Cola, and no one's allowed to touch it. They have to wear weird gear when they work there. There's all these interviews with Coca-Cola former employees, at the factory. They're like, we're not allowed to know what's going on.
You're saying anyone who's been to the dentist and got Novocaine has done cocaine?
Yeah. No, but it's made from, a lot of the time, right? You can do it. There's a synthetic version now as well, but for the most part,
is a processed version of the cocoa leaf. So like Novocaine is not cocaine.
Well, but still, I mean,
once removed. Shoot me up, Doug.
I would chew on some cocoa leaves. I've never done cocaine, but I would chew on cocoa leaves. I chew on any kind of leaf as long as I know it's not like a fatal one.
Yeah, if you're like 13,000 feet of elevation in the Bolivian mountains and you don't chew on cocoa leaves, you'll pass out.
I do it right here at sea level. If somebody sends me some raw cocoa leaves, I'll chew on one on camera.
I've had the privilege to chew on cocoa leaves at sea level, and it's been a wonderful experience. I can certainly say it's like the best cup of coffee without the jitters.
Now, does it make you want to start a food truck with strangers you just met?
So you don't understand with the salsa. I'm telling you guys.
So what if this is the conspiracy that in the 80s, they removed the last of whatever was, cocaine analogous from the substance for a while, reintroduced Coke Classic, right? And Coke Classic is this is kind of like their new version of the old Coca-Cola, which still has the processed extracted cocaine syrup, but it's not the same. But so there's like a period there, which is kind of like a cold turkey for America, and everyone's freaking out. And it's not just because it's flat and doesn't taste good.
They still sold Classic Coke at the same time. They didn't discontinue Classic Coke. I don't think, unless I'm remembering.
They did, yeah. They discontinued Classic. They discontinued
for how long until they brought it right back?
Until they brought Coca-Cola Classic and got rid of New Coke, right? And so, I mean, that's the thing, and then they took it off the shelves, and so it's this whole thing where people are like, why would you get rid of the original Coca-Cola, and then you bring back a thing and you call it Coca-Cola Classic, which is like, okay, you're telling us it's the original Coke because it's classic, but it's not. Otherwise, you would just say Coca-Cola. Right. Yeah, it's now called Classic. It's a new product that's based on the original Coke. It's a lot closer to the original Coca-Cola.
It's like the telemetry data to the moon. They're just like, we don't need this anymore. And then they're like, oh, everyone's complaining.
Right? I mean, like the whole thing where only 2 people are allowed to know the recipe for Coca-Cola. They can't be in the same plane or boat or car ever. So there's something weird there, and we don't know. I mean, because it's not patented, we're not able to know what's in
You think
the
they got baby in there too? Is there a baby in there? And that's why Pepsi was trying to test it to get the right amount of baby to compete with Coca-Cola?
Soda, China. So one of the things is I had a girlfriend who lived in China.
Not enough baby.
When she was living in China, she's like, there's all these weird sodas in China that are like really, really, they taste a lot like the real thing, but then you feel like you're on drugs afterwards. Like you feel like sedated, euphoric, stimulated, not just caffeine. You know what I mean? And I think that this is what a lot of PepsiCo had all these new formula products for years that they were testing. One area would get one barrel set of syrups, another area gets another. I mean, like a Pepsi ads 1950s.
Do Asian people like sell soda with the beer, like in the like liquor stores? Like, is that do they consider soda like a drug because of this?
They absolutely did, yeah.
Yeah, I mean that, and we did too, right?
Sugar,
originally,
the advent of sugar, people were like, I don't take sugar. Like they spoke about it like a drug.
Originally, you would go to a drugstore to get your soda fountain. So
but it's weird how in America, like especially in like really impoverished areas, like it's the only thing people drink, and it's like they don't even think about it. They're like, yeah, I'm just gonna get some soda, like that's just what we do. It's like you go to some gas stations and they have one option for water, and that's it. Like, and you got like maybe some sugary tea, to pick from. It's kind of shitty,
maybe some orange juice. Yeah.
But I don't know. I mean, if all of them have like a very low, mild sedative in it, that would make a lot of sense. I mean, look at people's propensity to do drugs in areas where they're drinking soda all the time.
Well,
right?
imagine you're in Bolivia in the middle of the mountains, and someone from the Coca-Cola company drives by with their missionary truck, right? Because it's basically that, and it brings you this black, bubbly beverage, and it says, "Hey, not just that, we're going to install a whole fridge in your building, and people will buy the soda from you, and we'll just come and we'll take care of the fridge for you, but you can't put anything in it besides our drinks." And so that's what's happened all across South America and Asia. And that's one of the reasons why China makes its own soda, which might be a good reason.
And here, dude, and in America. I mean,
yeah, you just pointed it out.
Gas stations where
they put them in schools too. They put Coke machines in schools, Pepsi machines.
Yeah.
Well, isn't there like whole churches in Mexico where like it's like they only drink Coca-Cola? It's like a problem. Like they're like the whole town is sort of like reliant on Coca-Cola because
for sure.
When Chinese first got Coca-Cola, they drank it warm because they didn't know what else to do with it. They were, and so there's parts of China where warm Coca-Cola, like even almost heated Coca-Cola, is like a thing still. And I mean, it's interesting because it is our Jesuits or our missionaries. Coca-Cola is these red outfits, these red trucks. And the symbolism in every single cafe, any like small family cafe now has a Coca-Cola flag, Coca-Cola patio tables, any country in the world you go. Crazy.
Red's associated with death, and this is why it attracts people because of the blood color, right? Food.
Certain people can condition their body to replace water with other liquids, flying in the face of mainstream nutrition and health science. Like I knew a girl when I was in Jamaica, a white girl in Jamaica that only drank Ting, which is like Jamaican Mountain Dew pretty much, or like Jamaican Sprite.
wow.
She couldn't drink water. She would only use it to brush her teeth, but it would make her gag. She never swallowed water all day for her whole life. And to this day, she's still alive and only drinks soda. She never drinks water.
The rest of her diet, like
I'm not going to recommend that to anybody.
She wasn't a vegan or anything. She ate jerk chicken. It was Jamaica. She was big into Jamaican culture, which is why she was a white girl living in Jamaica. But she just drank Tang. I liked champagne cola. I was a young man, so I was drinking champagne cola.
I think there is a logic to that on the equator where people probably culturally only drink beverages that are warm or heated up or maybe like, derived from teas and fruits. Like you got to mix it and brew it. You don't just like drink water tepid from a stream there. I mean, yes, people, immune systems sort of get accustomed, but I don't think you can get accustomed to a drought, right? Because there's many places on the equator where they have a rainy season and then a very, very, very dry season. So that makes sense that people who are more accustomed to the tropical areas could foment water and use something else.
And I've known a lot of people from different cultures, and they always where they don't have refrigeration or it hasn't been something that's been established for a long time with refrigeration, they can only drink. They'll tell me, like, I'll get sick if I drink cold water. I have to have warm water, especially Indians. Right. They like warm water.
I think there's something to that. Your body, your organs would get shocked by the temperature for sure. I mean, if you're not,
there's a big thing about American diet. It's just like you love shocking your organs, and like you want to taste something, and you want it to be like a carbonated shot of whiskey, just be like, like burning in your mouth.
We say carbonated, but it's actually like what? It's like carbon dioxide that's in the bubbles, right?
Right, and that's actually mimicking fermentation. They discovered like 4 or 5 years ago. There's a 6 taste receptor for They say for carbonation, but I think what it's really for is for fermentation.
Makes sense.
Yeah. Well, I was gonna jump in with because recently I talked to a guy named George Wiseman who created the AquaCure hydrogen device, and his whole thing is like hydrogen is a macronutrient and it's what we need. So I'm wondering maybe if the carbon dioxide, messes with that, or maybe replaces that. I don't know. I don't know enough about biochemistry, but
no, the hydrogen thing definitely makes sense because it's something that really all elements come from hydrogen on a different spin rate, pretty much, right? So our bodies would be able to heal themselves and come to an equilibrium if they had a lot more hydrogen. So I agree with that.
Yeah, the device he sells is very small. It's not a whole chamber like that. But it's funny talking about Asia.
Trying to find. I've seen,
hydrogen bars in Asia where you come up, you sit down, and they have like what you see for people who have trouble breathing, like those nose things. They just pop them in. That's what I have. He actually sent me one.
Well, that's awesome.
For hydrogen, well, I've only seen that for oxygen.
Yeah, I've seen things where hydrogen's supposed to be really good for you. I forget, KS is a friend from Denmark who has one of these, and it was like $3,000. So I'm pretty sure you could probably make one cheaper that does similar things.
Well, he sells the for very cheap. He sells the schematics so you can build your own. His whole thing is not to make money; it's to get this device out there as far and wide as he can. So there's opportunity for anyone who's interested to like make a small business out of creating those.
Japanese will breathe these things and live to be 120 sometimes, so there's got to be something to it, I think.
I'm getting one of those for sure. Those are.
Well, they have.
But I'm gonna come hang out
in public.
Yeah, right? I want status reports. That's cool.
They have like hydrogen bars in Japan, but I've seen in some like poshy kind of neighborhoods up in the northern part of Connecticut, they have like, I think it's like an oxygen bar or something.
Yeah,
like
those are common in California. They actually have vendors on the street outside of like bars. Like where I lived in Venice, the bar I went to, there was a guy outside who had like little mini TVs and a radio, and you would sit down and put on the nose things and
is that for people purely because they're in like a polluted? Because where they're doing,
no, it actually gets you high. You do feel high from the oxygen,
right? Pure oxygen. Yeah, you can't give it to a baby because they would die, so they have to give them all the correct air that's mixed in things, you know. But if you take oxygen and get too much oxygen, this is one of the reasons why yoga can make you feel kind of high from hyperventilating and doing like breath of fire and things like that. So pretty sweet, kind of expensive. Interesting.
I think in yoga, when you do breath of fire, you're creating nitrous oxide. I think like when that's the thing with sprinters too. Like when you sprint, like the breathing through your nose creates, I think, nitrous oxide and gets you high. I think.
Yeah, I like L-arginine because it's supposed to help nitrate the blood and decalcify the blood, and so that's supposed to be useful. Supposedly, I mean, not medical advice. Yeah, right.
Sponsored by Crystal Pepsi.
when sodas were originally invented, you know, or when people were drinking sodas, they were health drinks, they were sports drinks, but they were stimulants, and there was everything in between. It was supposed to help you wean off of morphine. The guy who invented Coca-Cola was a soldier with a missing leg or wound. He had all kinds of wounds, and so he was trying to get off of morphine. So he had a cocaine sugar drink that had something like, you know, you think the sugar in cocaine now is a lot. You should see how much sugar the original one had. And then you've got Germans across South America that are trying to make preservative fruit beverages because if you can get citrus to people. So Fanta was very important because it was not just a soda pop, it was a health drink because you couldn't necessarily get oranges to people. And
like
during World War
they drink Orangina all over the Pacific Islands.
And I think the idea is that you're infusing a gas into the water, and that's going to preserve it somehow. I mean, that's where I correlated the AquaCure, because you can put a device next to your AquaCure, like a cup with water in it, and it bubbles that water for you. So if you don't want to sit there and breathe it, you can make your own like elixir concoction of hydrogen bubbled water. So I'm like, maybe that's where soda got its start. Like it was like a health thing. And then the powers that be were like, no, we're going to load it up with drugs and sugar.
Guys, if you have any extra money, fan service, you can see the P.O. box, send a soda stream, and we'll make colloidal silver soda, and we'll drink it. We'll tell you all about
I use colloidal silver mouthwash. It's awesome.
Yeah, right? But that's the thing. People did that. People made all sorts of health drinks that were designed to last long periods of time, were carbonated, were, you know, with special fruits, with all kinds of medicines mixed into them. And now we're getting back to that. There's these things, I don't know this company, but, you know, probiotic hemp seed oil infused sodas are starting to emerge. And there's nootropic sodas, nootropics with electrolytes, MCT oils, lion's mane. So there are way better options again. And it's interesting because this is basically like if you went to a drugstore soda fountain, you know, what would they do? Well, they had a tap, and then they would pour some tea, and then like a iced tea of these different herbs and mixtures, and then they would spray it with the soda, so it mixes it up really nice. And so it was a health solution for so many people.
We're getting closer and closer to Legend of Zelda potions, where you drink a soda and it actually does something.
Yeah, I mean,
though too, how like apple cider vinegar could taste absolutely terrible, but then you carbonate it and it's not that bad. You put a little bit of lemon in it and you carbonate it, and I'll tell you what, apple cider vinegar gets through any sickness.
What happened there?
What a lot of these sodas were brown too, right? And it's called Brown's gas. The hydrogen is called Brown's gas.
Interesting,
right? So I think they use that brown, and they know in alchemy they use different color bottles and stuff like that to cause a different kind of. They know that it infects it with a certain type of energy.
Infuses it.
Yeah, that's a huge thing. Like, so the French will use specific colors because only certain colors of light will shine through it, and they even get like perfumeries to help with the wine bottle colors for the glass.
That's why Heineken is always skunk. The green allows in whatever kind of light that just skunks the beer right away. I've never had a good taste of Heineken.
That's a lot. There's a lot of water glass bottles that are green. I've noticed, like green and blue are very common for like these, expensive glass bottled water that you see at Whole Foods. I'm wondering why that is.
And brews like beer, it's a lot of browns.
Yeah, I don't see a lot of red water bottles except for like canteens or something like that. It doesn't seem like people are into that idea that much. You can do it, I guess, but
I have yellow colored glass. I think this is pretty neat. I don't know. I have all my furniture's from Goodwill, so I'm working with the best.
I love the classics. Yeah, classics are the way to go. The 70s vintage.
Yeah.
But then so then they started taking things away, and like the Marijuana Tax Act, and so hemp infused soda stopped being a thing in the early 20s. But before that, hemp infused soda were really popular, particularly with women because of menstrual cramps. And there was all sorts of opiates that were not as popular and became pushed on the people because they started cutting out other drugs. And then the drugstores had to turn into pharmacies that had to be licensed, and things got more and more crazy until now you've got pharmacies today.
I find that interesting. It says leaning tree, right? Talking about hemp. They call it tree.
Where do you oh yeah, the leaning tree. Interesting.
Yeah.
And these are the different syrups, and stuff that you would pour, and then you'd spray the carbonated water into it. So you mix these things together, And what do we call it when you mix all of your sodas together at the soda fountain?
It's a suicide.
Right, because it was super dangerous if you were to have just mix all of the things together, like all these different drugs. I don't know if that's really the reason, but
that's funny.
Well, it's wild the way they indoctrinate. I mean, I can't speak for everyone, but at least in the Connecticut public school system, they gave us this impression that there are all these quacks selling hocus pocus, phony medicine, and then they reformed all the drugs because people in the churches were scared, and they give you like this storybook kind of version of it, and it's absolutely not that way at all. They were just consolidating power so they can, as you said, push opium rather than hemp, and push, artificial drugs rather than organic drugs. And people are going to go with the organic ones if they have the option. I mean, it's just
and the information.
Yeah,
man. Yeah. I don't shop at stores with red letters. If you own a store with red letters, I'm sorry, but maybe change your sign. In general, I've had too many bad experiences. I just don't trust stores with red letters.
A lot of these pharmacies that became the big chains, like I don't know about CVS, but Walgreens, the only reason they stayed in business was because they were allowed to sell whiskey while everybody else was not allowed to sell alcohol during the Prohibition. So people were buying
really
medicinal whiskey from Walgreens all through the Prohibition.
That's fascinating. Wow. I did not know that Walgreens was a Prohibition holdover.
I don't support Walgreens.
They kept it in their bathroom for medicinal reasons, but not for drinking.
Yeah,
very interesting. Well, they used to be able. So yeah, you could sell alcohol for non human consumption, and so then what they would do is they'd have a bunch of barrels of alcohol, which they said if we're going to sell them, you could sell non-alcoholic beer. So you'd have to boil the beer to sell it, but you would still have alcohol there. So there are a lot of these businesses that were, the whole thing, the Prohibition was so nuts. And if you think about all the families that were, their whole lives for
they
generations.
poisoned beer and stuff, and then I think like 120 people died from like the government poisoned the beer.
At least, right? People doing these things, but then of course you've got families where that for generations they've been brewers, right? You got people with names like Maltby or something like that, that's what they did for generations. They're the malt brewers.
The rats in the sewer, like dumping beer and whiskey in the sewer.
That's how they got giant rats. They're like, dude, totally. The biggest.
This is still happening in India.
That's how we got monsters in Long Island Sound from this.
There's an alcohol prohibition in India going on. I thought that was the Muslims.
In a lot of places in India, they don't let you brew and stuff like that, and then they poison it with a lot of lead and all kinds of stuff. So
we talked about this before. You have to win the argument and let people make the decision for themselves. You can only make things worse like this.
Crush it all with a crusher.
That's like, who was it? Like Eric Adams, the new mayor of New York. He like lined up a bunch of motorcycles, and he's like, "We hate motorcycles" or whatever, and like ran over him with the steamroller.
It's like the Beatles records being destroyed. I don't know. It's a lot.
Yeah.
Take that. Yeah, I don't know. They do like to drink, so it's but the Muslim countries don't allow it, and I feel like they probably drink more. There's probably a lot more speakeasies there, so maybe telling people what to do just isn't working. Still, now I want to own a Midwestern drugstore from like in Indianapolis in the gay 90s.
Soda Jerk or the original pharmacy. Yeah, I mean that just looks bomb. You have all your little.
What did you call me? No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, I want to be a Soda Jerk. That'd be sweet. We didn't even really talk about the Nazis and Fanta. I think that's okay. It's just, you guys know, right? Like the Nazis and Fanta, you know all that. So basically, I'll just say it quickly. World War II, they couldn't get the things across with the ships and everything like that. So the Coca-Cola company couldn't get Coca-Cola to the Germans. And so they were like, well, we can do Fanta. So Fanta has become super famous as the Nazi equivalent to Coca-Cola, the product that Coca-Cola continued to sell when they couldn't otherwise. And also, if you buy Fanta in other countries, it's different. Like here we have weird chemicals in it. Britain and Denmark, it's like organic. South America, it's, hands are up what it is. But yeah, wow. Fanta.
Wow. Cool.
In South America, it mutates you.
It's true, dude. When I was in South America, I'd freak out because it'd be like, all the food would have like numbers for ingredients a lot of the time. You're like, how is that? How do you get away with that? I don't know. It's just. But okay, so Mr. Douglas, let me pull up your page. Guys, go to MrDouglas.com.
I wanted to say that the guest that you had on, I believe Tom from Paranoid American, had a fantastic time, and I went ahead and got one of their comics. I just wanted to use this time to say their comics are great.
Dude,
really, really fun, really educational.
Which one did you get?
This one's Time Sliders, right?
Wow.
Time Samplers. Number 2, issue 2. Very good. Lots of fun, even though it looks like I can't recall what the title is. It is a wonderful story. I look forward to getting the rest of them. Just
right.
I'm a Insta fan. Great. Oh, the MK Ultra pamphlet. I got one of those too. That was really cool. They got a couple videos out right now.
Geronimo's Grave.
Really, really great stuff. I'm a big fan of Paranoid American.
Dude, we're becoming fanboys. I'm stoked. Thomas, we're gonna have you back on the show soon. Let's set something up. I appreciate you. You're amazing. MK Ultra pamphlet. I love this. Every once in a while, when someone's talking on a show, otherwise, I'll just pull up my MK Ultra pamphlet and just start reading it and be like, yeah.
He's got like a Cthulhu coloring book too. I saw.
Yeah, some very cool stuff.
Yeah, it's just a nice.
Also, I'll be on Darth Call's show tomorrow. Better Call, 9 p.m. Eastern.
Yeah,
I love Wednesday Ultra. It's I love the education I get here every Wednesday. It's awesome.
Make sure you guys tomorrow jump on into the Better Call Call episode. And if you haven't already, make sure you're listening to the audiobook series, The City of Okami, Chapter 4. It's really amazing. All the lives, click on the lives. You know how this works now on YouTube. You gotta click on lives. And so here they are. Episode 19, 12 days ago. And then here comes the next one. Because there was a Thanksgiving, it happens.
There was a Thanksgiving. That's right.
Yeah. But also, if you haven't already, Ingo Swan's median work that he's read is amazing. So go to the Podbean and you can, if you really want to get into some weirder stuff than even we're talking about, I feel like Ingo Swan, good place to start.
Andreas, you're amazing. Thank you.
You're a beautiful man.
Thank you.
My family thinks I'm crazy. Mark right here with an amazing podcast, a great website, and a huge Alt Media United podcast cooperative.
Thank you. Yeah, I just came out with the Scene Edition 2. It's not on the website front page yet, but it is available in the Ko-Fi store. So go and check that out. It details a bunch of different stone structures that I've found around my local area after applying the techniques used in the Scene Edition 1. So it's sort of like a running booklet magazine, and you can download it PDF for now. There will be printed copies in the future, but yeah, that's on the Ko-Fi store. You can actually, if you click on the link there, with the first one, you'll get to the second one as well.
Down at the bottom here, this one, what's the one here?
Oh, when you had it before, Scene Edition 1, it's right in the middle of the page, and then from there,
yep, okay, Edition 1, and then go here.
Button, yeah, and then you go to the store, and that's where the other one is somewhere. If you click my name, Mystic Mark View Shop. Thank you for doing all this. Thank you, even though I was late. I apologize for that. But yeah, it's there somewhere. You saw it before, but then it skipped past it. But
you saw it here somewhere?
No, in the shop part. You're in the gallery.
View shop. There's the button there.
Yeah.
Okay, and this is Scene Edition 2.
Boom. Yes, stands for Nemesis, New England Maps of Megalithic Esoteric Sacred Sites and Indian Stone Structures, and I named it that purposefully. And when you check out the Scene Edition 2, you'll understand why.
Legit. Guys, make sure you go to ko-fi.com. Actually, just go through Mystic Mark on the way we did it is the fastest way.
Yeah, website. Just go straight.
Just jump in here. And then, oh, Bernie. Hey, Bernie. What's up?
Bernie.
Yeah, we're about to close down. I was just showing them the last of the links. What's up, buddy? You got something?
No, I was just watching and felt like popping in and saying hi and crashing your party.
Hello. Good to see you, man. You're much loved. So, guys, also subscribe to My Family Thinks I'm Crazy. Do the subscribe thing right there. Make sure you click on the bell. Watch this news Illuminati confirmed with Juan. Go to the Jeff Finna, Wisconsin Lore Beast video as well. Bernie, you are well loved. I'm sorry, he disappeared, but I still love you. Also, vbdc.store. If you haven't gone to the VBDC link tree, that's the best way to get through there. And then you can go to the store and through merch, but also the Pure Bloods video. And then I think Fundemic's the one with Anomaly, which I was just listening to earlier today because I saw Anomaly was on Adam Krigler. So let's talk to Anomaly.
Yeah. Go to my link tree, VBDC, and you can find all my music videos. Please follow me on Spotify and subscribe on YouTube if you don't mind. Lots of cool music videos. And I got the store. I got all kinds of Christmas gear up. I'm wearing the Abe Ong Signature Edition Christmas is Essential hoodie. It's really cool if you look at the art up close. And a whole bunch of other cool stuff there. And then, of course,
let me solo. Oops, wrong button. Let me solo you for a second. Show the sweater. This is what it looks like in real life.
Yeah, it's pretty really sweet. Detailed. It's a painting, actually. He does all these paintings by hand, like an actual 3D painting. And and also I do Talkie Time live on Instagram weekdays, except for Wednesday at 6:00 California time. And it's a lot of fun. I just mostly talk about philosophy and stuff. And shout out to all the Talkie Timers that come to the Ultra Chat every week. Much love.
Doing some good Twitter stuff.
Oh yeah, I just joined Twitter and I'm already the best at it. So make sure you follow me there.
Very good.
Right? Yeah. Is that on your link tree yet? Or Twitter?
It's in like the little icons. Like they have like little Spotify and Twitter and everything icons on the link.
Oh yeah, cool. Twitter. There we go. It's me, VBDC. There you go.
Functional. Yep.
And this is on the Notify. Good. Just making sure it's also.
Yeah, I have. I said Trump is the king of the island of the misfit toys. That was a recent one. You can just imagine like Trump is King Moonracer, the lion with the crown, and then like Kanye is the polka dotted elephant. Milo Yiannopoulos is the cowboy that rides an ostrich, and Nick Fuentes is the squirt gun that shoots jelly.
Dude. And then Giant on the Twitter. Make sure you guys are following Giant with all the crazy deep information about the Veda, the astrology, the astronomy, and the deep secrets, man.
I'm the weirdo, but I liked how Ye was shouting you out for MK Canada.
That was hilarious. Wasn't that funny? Did you guys see that? That was the best thing.
Yeah, that's what I thought immediately. I was like, "What?"
Your tweet went crazy too. Your tweet had like 1 billion replies.
Did it? Did it do well? There we go. I got really harshly ratioed because I was also like following Linus Tech Tips, and Linus was like saying, if Elon Musk is gonna make a phone and thinks he's gonna get away with it, I'm like, okay, I get it, because I've been watching Linus for years, and like the last month, he won't stop talking about Elon Musk instead of computers. I'm like, bro, I want to see you like hack a Nintendo and like build like a compact PC. I don't want to hear your opinions on this exactly, And then I got like all these people were like, dang, because it was like the first comment, and so half of my inbox is just people complaining from LTT, and I love the guy, right? And Anthony, but yes, the whole thing with he said we found out our trainer was an MK Ultra Canadian intelligence. Blah, 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 blah. No, I'm just kidding. I love it. Okay, all right. Well, I think we did it. That was pretty good, guys. Thank you very much, and we'll see you next time.
Love you guys.
Bye.
Merry Christmas.
Happy Wednesday.
Merry Christmas,
Wait. I did forget somebody. Go to Crypto Alchemist. I forgot Bernie showed up.
Yeah. Bernie.
Awesome.
Go to Crypto Alchemist. And later on, I don't know if we're doing it tonight, but we'll figure this out. We're going to do a real science.
Tonight, but our next real science probably be Friday and or Sunday. And then the Science of Sound episode is on Saturday. If you want to be a part of that, we can multicast that one as well. I have Ominous, the beatboxer, joining us live.
There you go.
For that too. So
yeah.
How about
Hutchinson?
Hutchinson?
And the Hutchinsons. We have the Hutchinsons probably this Sunday for the next Crystal Battery episode.
Perfect.
Nice.
Cool. Yeah. So let's set up some shows, and then tomorrow I think Bernie, you're on with MK Canada. So you'll if you're around, hopefully
Yes,
you're there.
sir.
And we'll do some MK Canada.
I'll make sure I show up for Canada.
Cool. Love you all. Happy Wednesday Ultra. We'll see you next time.
Guys.
All right.
Happy
take care.
Wednesday,
Bye-bye.
Ultra.
Merry Christmas.